Love it. All right. Let's go ahead. We gotta address the two big tournaments that happened. One of them, of course, being the Splatoon 3. It's the North American League that has just kicked off this past weekend. To my recollection, it's just the first of, I think, 2 preseason weeks. Someone will have to fact check me here on this, but the first one kicked off. There is gonna be the big elephant in the room we have to talk about here. Before we go, and I guess we could talk about that now, or we can talk about the brackets real quickly here. But real quickly here, we got pretty much it was pretty much a tournament that started with the ladder round. Basically, team just continuously fighting others just to get their way up to the top, and then bracket stages started later, which included your top 8. Now, DRF, I'm gonna go over to you. You participated in this tournament. How was the experience?
I'm still tired.
Yeah. And
Like-
that's the voice of someone who is actually dead inside right now.
Yeah, I will say that I don't think I have played in a format that was as brutal as this, and maybe that's also just me getting old, because like 8 hours straight of playing pretty competitive Splatoon matches, outside the few little Timmy teams that you run into in the ladder, is definitely pretty rough.
You said it was 8 hours?
Yes, it was.
Talk us through.
Yeah, so I guess we'll map it out. So we got online. So I'm in Pacific time, so I'll kind of use Pacific time as a reference here. But 11:30 is when we got on to warm up. The ladder started at 12. You play ladder from 12 to 3. By the time that we finished our final match, it was a little bit after 3. We gave ourselves, it was probably like 3:15, let's say. And then we gave ourselves 30 minutes to go get lunch, or probably like 40. Came back, got warmed up again. And then at 4 o'clock, had to jump into this 8-team double elimination. And if you know anything about double elimination, it always just takes absolutely forever, no matter how efficient you are with it. So by the time we had finished, we were pushing 8 o'clock Pacific time, probably even maybe a little bit after that. So it was a pretty solid 8 hours of playing since we started at 11:30. So that was all I did that day.
That was That was like an 8-hour almost work shift. It was.
I literally clocked in to play Splatoon and then clocked out and said, it's like your job. You don't want to touch it once you go home. Like I clocked out and said, no, we're done. We're not touching this thing again.
Was there anything that was like as close to that in terms of length when it comes to like tournaments of 4?
There has to be something.
I mean, just LANs in general. Like it's especially if you go to some of the locals. Like I love all the locals. I think they're fantastic. Sometimes they are pretty guilty of running a lot longer than they should. And that's happened at SoCali, that's happened at Sunset Surge and Booyah Bay, and I've won all 3 of those locals. And basically, they're playing for pretty much 8 hours the entire time. But something about a LAN, like it's tiring, but like in a different way where you're like, hey, we're gonna, muscle through this. I think in an online setting, it's actually somehow more fatiguing, just because, you're not feeding off of the energy of other people. It's just you and your teammates, in this call. You're fighting lag a little bit more. So it's definitely a weird, different sense of getting tired after playing for a prolonged period of time.
I was gonna say the 8-hour long format. Now I've done TO for one particular tournament that ran about 6 hours. I thought that was bad enough, but then hearing that long, that length of time was crazy.
If you're a TO, I'm saying be there before and after. So yeah,
Kbot raises his hand because you would know.
Yeah, I would know. Well, I was actually clocked in for those 8 hours as the person that was clocked in. I mean, as the TO, ladder for these events starts running itself after hour 2, and less disputes start happening. It's just a usual or a random disconnect errant here or there. And then the top 8 bracket also virtually ran itself. We're trying to be a little more hands-on and trying to encourage people to pick their stages quickly. So if you quickly write down your picks, hats off to you. But I will say, as the TO, who definitely was not expecting to sit around for that long, I was pretty tuned out by, even the time the bracket started. So I can only imagine what it felt like to actually play. Yeah, so it was interesting from my perspective. I think there's a lot of, it's the first event, right? So there's going to be an inherent learning curve. But to some people's points, there's a good chance that top 8 is much closer next time. Or maybe not significantly so, but at least a little closer, depending on who decides to show up, which could mean that things go on for longer. So my plea to you all as the players, please pick your stages and modes as soon as you can. Think about it ahead of time before the tournament starts, and please auto lock what you're thinking of playing. You don't need to counter pick just pick whatever you're comfortable on. There's no strategy or whatever. Just pick whatever you're comfortable on and move on with life. No need to sit here for 3 minutes and think about your single. You don't even get to choose both. You get to choose mode or stage. So pick one and move on.
I have some opinions on this. So
go for it. Go for it.
First of all, not to call anybody out, but a couple of folks that we played 6 matches. We played by far the most matches during the top 8, because in classic TZS fashion, we can't take a straightforward route. But it took folks so long. Yes, we were guilty of it once or twice because we were trying to figure out exactly, where do we go to. But there was times when the NA representatives or the Nintendo reps had to go into chat and be like, hey, what's your pick? A minute or 2 passes, ping again. Hey, what's your pick? I think at one point, there was one time they had to ping 3 times for a team to lock in their counter pick.
3 times?
Yes, what? and even then, there was multiple times in the top 8 that folks tried to counterpick us to things that were against the rules. They tried to take us to the same mode. Someone tried to take us to Eel Tail. I love all of our opponents. All of our opponents were great to play against. I'm sure they're all lovely people. Read the rules, please. Literally, as TZS as a team, we sat down when we registered and read through the entire rule set line by line to make sure we understand it, because Nintendo events are inherently very different than what the grassroots community has. So we wanted to be prepared. We had a list of maps and modes that we wanted to counterpick to. Now, to Kbot's point about, hey, just pick what you're most comfortable on, I do agree that that's where you should be going 75% of the time. But I do think that the way that this counterpicking system works, there's actually an inherent strategic element that is incorporated into this format that has not really been explored in other traditional counterpicking systems. And that's when we held up the tournament slightly. There was one time I had to message the mods and say, hey, apologies, we need a second here because we're trying to cook up a strategic element here to what our decision is. But I just outright apologized, said we just need, an extra 60 seconds. So at the very least, if you're going to take a while, let them know, apologize for it, but still try to make it as fast as possible.
The behind the scenes is you're supposed to have 45 seconds.
See, that's not in the rule set though.
That's not in the rule set, but that's the behind the scenes.
Gotcha.
You're supposed to lock things in within 45 seconds. Now, is there a way to properly enforce that online? No. But get it, Ed. I'm sure people will get better at it as it goes on, right? But yeah, actually, to that end, as I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, I expect that we're going to have a almost completely different top 8 for this week.
Yes.
So it might be just as long next week. You know, and people will still have to get used to it. But eventually everyone will have played one of these things. So show will be on the road by then.
The kicker from what I saw is there was only, and I was told about this, there were 2 game 5s. Most of the top 8 that I saw was sweeps, and we still had a pretty long run time. So I guess with it, when we start getting to preseason week 2 and you start seeing a lot of back and forth sets play out, oh boy, might be in for the long haul. That's, I think, that's the big thing people will probably need to keep an eye on. And of course, words from DRF and the TO Kbot, of course, is to get your picks in. Pastry, what are your thoughts with this very long, with how long the event went?
Yeah, I do definitely have some opinions about the lane, but also I do want to after like double click on how interesting the strategic element of it is. At least what my thoughts are. I was watch partying alongside some other streamer in Kyon, right? And it did go to midnight for my time. And it's like, yeah, makes sense, it's fair. But I was also thinking, like in hindsight, if you're not in top 8, your tournament runs like pretty standard. Like 3 and a give or take a little bit more. If you're not specifically in the top 8, you're chilling there. But it seems like the players that get into that top 8, like for example, UDRF, you have a whole other gauntlet. It's like, by the sounds of things, it's pretty unique. Like, if the only comparison lengthwise is a LAN, it's like, that is quite unique.
Yeah. DRF, maybe next week you all will want to just barely miss out on top 8. What do you think?
Honestly, I do think that, so for one, you know, we're still gonna gun for it. You know, obviously, like, people are gonna say that, yes, week 1 is watered down. You know, are we going to be in the finals again? I mean, maybe, you know, it depends who signs up. But I do think that one takeaway from the first week is that a lot of top level teams looked at it and was like, oh, crap. Like, we got to buckle up for every time we do this because we're clearing our entire day to participate in each of these qualifiers. And I think a lot of top level teams are going to look at this and have to sort of plan out, hey, when do we actually want to play? Because it's an all-day affair. You know, it's going to be 8 hours long, possibly, you know, give or take an hour, depending on how things go. You know, and yes, only 5 of the 8 are going to actually matter. So now, do teams want to try to maximize the opportunities and play all 8? You know, possibly risk some burnout, or do they strategically find, hey, you know, we're going to just pick 5 weeks that work best for everybody? Balance, you know, some time off, some other tournaments maybe. So I'm really curious to see what, you know, some of those top teams ultimately decide to do when they plan out their schedule for the entire season.
Yeah, that's a good point, that you don't have to do every single thing to get your best.
You don't have to do this to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you kind of do.
You kind of, hey, if you want to get to the top, yes, you kind of do, but you don't have to do it all 8 weeks. And low key, if teams ultimately strategically plan out, you know, 5 or 6 to play in, you know, it might actually open the doors for a couple of sneaky teams to get through. You know, maybe like TZS, but so we'll have to see. But I do think that there is just a very slight level of strategy there.
I think the more likely thing that's going to happen is, I mean, I don't actually know if leaderboard results will be updated or if they will be shared. I assume they will be over the course of the season as it progresses.
They already are for week 1, so there is a leaderboard that you could see.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
Maybe so. There's like a preseason leaderboard or something in the
Yeah, there's a preseason leaderboard.
Okay, gotcha. So presumably that will be updated. I would not be surprised to watch like your FT Win or Milky Way of the world play the first 5 weeks, get enough points, and feel like they're pretty well set to not play the last 3 weeks. I think that's more likely to happen. And so I don't think there's going to be a very dedicated, like, we're going to play it out exactly these 5, or like, we're going to play it all of them. But they probably know that at some point they'll have enough points to basically be a lock. And I think that's probably what they're most likely to look for. I think it's the teams like the teams like my team, the teams like DRF's team, the teams like Moonlight, that are going to want to play in every single one to have the best possible opportunity to make sure that they are not left out of playoffs.
And that's probably something to just definitely keep in mind with the weeks that progresses throughout the season. I think I think exactly to your point, K. But I think if you're a top team, would look at their points and they're like, okay, I think we're comfortable skipping this week. Especially you're gonna probably see, and I think I agree with you. I think you'll start to see it at the end. I think that's where it starts to become a lot more prevalent. Speaking of which, there's the season results. Thank you, CKK, for providing what DRF was talking about there. So yeah, there are all the points there too. Which real quick, oh god, it actually does go a bunch of many pages. So it probably covers pretty much the majority of the teams that got points for either participating
that actually
or
goes way longer than I thought.
Oh, it's going.
it's still going.
Whoa, it's off.
Goodness. I do want to circle back though. So yeah, top 8 I think has been heavily discussed about through especially with preseason week 1. That is, I think you guys are going to be ultimately correct. I think expect to see a different top 8, especially when Super Jump happened this past week, where the priority might have been there, so there wasn't really a good chance to participate in the NA League. But just to give you guys a recap with how top 8 played out, it was of course TZS. You got What's Quackin'. Someone's gonna have to correct me on the pronunciation. I think it's Lania Kea or Lania Key. Lania Kea. Close enough. Impulse, Duck Motif, Mischievous Mog, Bad Villain, and Ziphias rounded out the top 8, and I believe these would be the top 8 teams from playing in the from ladders. Now, DRV, you guys had a pretty decent run to the end, only to drop to Game 5 against Lania Kea in, I believe, losers finals if I read the bracket right. How did that top 8 run felt for y'all?
Well, slight correction there. So we did make it to grand finals. We did win Game 5 against Lania Kea. And
yeah, you're right. It is grand finals. My apologies.
No, all good. So yeah, I mean, obviously we played 6 sets, which I think contributed to some of that fatigue. But overall, I am very happy with how we did. We got more than our money's worth with playing in this event. We had 4 sets on stream, on Nintendo stream, in front of 1,900 viewers on Twitch, and I don't know how many on YouTube, but
800, I think.
Yeah, so like we got the TZS brand out there. We had the chat rooting for us pretty much the whole way through, which was just honestly so much fun. And ultimately, finally got our first win on a Nintendo stream through the Lania Kea set. We were 0-6 in individual games and 0-2 in sets on Nintendo. So finally, when we got into losers bracket, got to play against who was it first? Bad Villain, I believe. Then finally got the first game win and set win under our belt, because we came off the Lania Kea set and we just said, hey, there was definitely for some reason just a little bit of nerves playing in that set. We kept it close, but just couldn't close anything out. And then on top of that, going into the Bad Villain set, Kraken had just gotten back. He had gone to like Walmart or something for 5 hours. I don't know. All I know is he was gone for 5
Went to
hours.
go get the milk or what? So like,
yeah, like he was gone for 5 hours, and I know Walmart was included somewhere in that. So I'm just gonna say that Kraken got lost in a Walmart for 5 hours. But he came back and gave us some fresh legs. So I was able to sub out. Kraken came in, and suddenly we just had this whole new life in the team, because he had not been playing the game the entire time. So it was, really, really cool to just kind of get that nice burst of energy to, sweep through Bad Villain, have that really good set to come back against Lania Kea, get the run back victory there, and then, take the first game win off of Duck Motif as well.
DRF, we have to talk about that Game 5. That Game 5, that's gonna go down in Splatoon history. I sent a little clip of it because the whole entire push that you guys did lasted the entire clip. We have to talk about this. This is actually insane.
By all means.
CKK is in It's in the actual text channel for the voice call,
Oh, I see it.
not in any of the Discord text channels. Yes, I'm breaking the fourth wall because that is the most efficient way to do this.
You
No
literally
kidding on that.
Like, not that many
It's a-
pushes you can fit into a clip, you know?
So this is the push. Oh, I think I see how this is all gonna play out. Actually, isn't it? Because it's
Yeah.
probably just as crazy as it looks.
It was literally all gas, no brakes. That's just what this came down to. We landed all of our shots. I say we like I was in this game, but we landed all of our shots. And actually, you know, I think that there is a lot more that than meets the eye here with how this game sort of shook out. I'll kind of let the rest of this clip play through, but as you can see, it's just we got everything we wanted, and as Pastry said, like it's not very often you could get a whole tower control victory in a clip on Twitch.
Yeah, it's unreal, actually.
That was like the perfect 100-0 victory in that game. In that game 5, like no, I think there were barely any pauses, if any. That was probably the most efficient you could have done with that push, DRF. And obviously you weren't playing. I'm guessing that was Kraken that subbed in to close it out.
Yeah, DRF definitely deserves credit for that one. For sure. Yeah.
No,
He
I
talked
will
about
say
it.
actually. So here's the crazy thing: is
DRF
that it was-
cheerleader on the bench.
Yes, but I actually, as soon as Kraken came in, I actually assumed the role of coach because as soon as Kraken, joined in, we knew that what was working was Pork's bubble, because a lot of times if all 5 of us are available, 9 out of 10 times it's going to be either me or Pork sitting out. But we were building a lot of our offense around the bubble from the junior, and I said, you know what, that's fine. You guys coast. I was in Twitch chat the entire time, like as the TZS spokesperson, giving insider information and just messing with the chat, whatever. But I was also coaching because I think if Nine would have reached through across the screen and strangled us with some of our counterpick choices. Because the first time we played Laniakea in the winners semis, we got swept 0-3. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what the specific map modes were. But in the run back, we took them back. Yes, thank you. Umami Zones and Tower Inkblot. We took Laniakea in the run back to Umami Zones and Tower Inkblot, which I understand why Nine was frustrated, because Nine's like, you literally lost on this. You got your butt handed to you. It wasn't that bad, but like I said, it was actually a very strategic decision. And why we actually kind of held up the tournament just a tiny little bit in the losers finals there, because when we were up, well, I'll kind of focus mainly on the TC Inkblot thing. That game, the game 3 that we had lost in winners semis, stuck with us like through the rest of the tournament. And it was something that we already knew exactly where they beat us. And when we got there and we knew that the last mode was going to be tower control, we looked at our map options and they were all kind of crap. So we said, let's go to what we're comfortable with, which is going to be Inkblot, even if Nine is going to be screaming, like, why are we back at TC Inkblot? But 2, we knew the exact game that they were playing and how to counteract it. Because what they had done to beat us the first time was running their entire offense through the Stamper. The Stamper was the complete end-all be-all of their game. Yes, they had a Carbon as well. The Carbon was constantly running in, getting one pick, jumping out. But like that was a nuisance. But it wasn't really dictating how they played the game. Where the Stamper, on the other hand, was the one that was causing more chaos and forcing us to direct attention to them. So what they were doing is, for those that know the term, they were kiting. Like they were constantly, just playing the perfect distance from the tower to try to get chip damage, but then they were retreating. so that they were never actually in danger, but we always were being attacked from 2 fronts. So we could never get a tower push going. Now, in that, so we said, we know exactly how to beat them at their game here. If by having me out and Kraken in, Kraken actually has a little bit more leverage to, 1, either deal with the flank, or 2, we just go all in on bats a little bit more. And, at the very least, Pork on the tower and Vapor going to be hovering around the tower as well, will be able to direct their attention a little bit more. The bigger thing was that they didn't go back to the Stamper. They pivoted to the decav. And the decav was not as big of an issue for us. It was the Stamper. I don't know what they were necessarily thinking, but the Stamper is what caused us issues the first time, and we were shocked to see that they had pivoted. So we were already planning to, counteract the Stamper, but then they gave us an even, bigger treat by getting rid of the Stamper altogether.
In essence, it was kind of, it was like, oh, okay, you got rid of the one problem. You got rid of the one problem that we were having to deal with. And we're like, all right, now we know what to do.
Yeah, precisely. Like like I said, they almost kind of gave us, exactly what we needed on a silver platter. And then the rest of the team was like, oh, this is perfect for us. Now we know exactly what to do. And, you get a couple of early picks like we saw there, especially with Pepe finally popping off. As we were, Pepe was kind of off and on again through the entire top 8. But he just turned it on right there and then at the most clutch moment, and just completely smoked them.
Oh, that's a great showing there, of course, from y'all. Especially that game 5 was just magical to see.
I do have a slight follow-up and question, because it sounds like everybody was surprised that you all were picking Turf War and Clan Blitz.
Yes.
As someone who has watched TZS play in Nintendo events, they always do better in Nintendo events for some reason. I wonder why. Maybe it's because they're forced to go over to play Turf War and Clan Blitz. I don't understand why everyone was shocked that you all are picking those modes. Because that's kind of your shtick. That's just what you're known for, at least in my head. Maybe there's so many new people to Splatoon that don't understand. I mean, apparently I took it for granted everyone knew who Hexen was, but Popgun didn't even know who Hexen was. So yeah, I digress. I don't know where the narrative came from that oh, it's surprising that TZS is picking Turf War and Clan Blitz. What? No.
I think that it's you kind of hit the nail on the head in that one. I think there's just so much turnover in the community that people tend to forget. I think that's one thing for sure. But 2, I agree. It's a kind of in our name. If our name is Triggerfish Zone Supremacy, we're gonna take you somewhere where you are not comfortable. Bold
of you to assume that anybody remembers what Triggerfish looked like. Apparently.
But it was all part of the strategy. You're completely right, Kbot, that we're gonna take you to Turf War. And we always tend to do well in the Nintendo events. Now, admittedly, we started off on a very bad foot with Turf War. We lost to a team of, I'm going to say Little Timmy's because I did not recognize a single name on there in Turf War because we whiffed the last 30 seconds. That was the only time, though, I believe we had lost in Turf War in the entire tournament. No, sorry, ATP also beat us in Turf War. But yeah, we went 8-2 in Turf War, the entire event. And it's just that, one, nobody practices it. And that was one of my main takeaways from the entire event, is that nobody's practiced turf in years, and it showed. And it showed from us included. We were very rough on Turf War. But when we finally got momentum on Turf War, every time we took someone there in the top 8, it was an instant win for us.
I would love to talk about the Turf War practice level a bit here. So just a bit of like a top down type thing, right? Of course, everyone knows that Japan plays turf a lot more than the West. There's Koshien, for example, but it's also a seasonal tournament league called Nawabari Fest, which funny enough, in Turf War, in Japanese, this is Splatfest, but they call it Nawari Fest. I don't know why, but anyway, you can immediately draw the difference in a region that practices Turf War a lot versus one that just frankly doesn't. They actually have a couple examples here of some of the things I noticed, like in Nawari Fest, also Koshien, which, you know, like the Japanese majors, right? That I feel the West could absolutely do a lot better. And from what we saw in the NA League, like that absolutely pre-ball, was first being the end game for Turf War here. So this is an example from Nawari Fest, and I want everyone to just pay attention to the timing of the special. So first here, we do see that the bucket for the other team goes down, but very important point about it, that bucket was cooled. So they're gonna have their strikes. It's hard to see the exact time, but it's around like the 30-ish, 20-ish seconds mark. And this is when they start to throw their specials. They're timing their specials for that 10-ish, that 20-ish second mark, ideally a bit later, but like the teammate broke out in that kind of way. And it's a very simple idea, right? Have your big paint AoE specials ready for, you know, that sort of 20-second down mark. But in the Turf War matches that were on stream in the top 8, that did not happen. We had a Stamper that on one of the top 8 sets die without cooler like 30 seconds before they could even get the Booyah on, when they have the Booyah on at that timer. And that last 2 to 3% that everybody likes to complain about, the best way to deal with that inherent flippiness of Turf War is to have your big paint specials ready for the end game. But I feel like we just don't have the repetitions when it comes to that.
But that also goes into the fact that not many teams really practice Turf War in general. Like nobody is like, you're gonna get the 4 ranked modes, and Turf War is just like, oh, it's just an afterthought. So
yeah.
It's like, when you don't have that kind of repetition at the end, it's like, well, how on earth are we supposed to play Turf War? Which, if you have teams that, I'd imagine if there are teams that actually have Turf War maps that they can use to their advantage, they will probably start to show up. And then I think throughout the course of the league, you'll start to see teams probably use it if they're comfortable with it. But I think for this first week, I think it's also clear that Turf War was not really probably in anybody's mind, especially those that participated.
Yeah, it really.
Yeah. Go ahead. Do you have something quick?
it really does. It kind of the things that we saw at this first week. I really doubt that we're going to see this towards the end game, when it seems like, okay, we, at least for these last few weeks, we need to be at least some kind of low at Turf War. We're just going to get perma counter picks for it, for example. But also, I would like to illustrate another thing here with like a separate clip for the.
I would like to comment on that clip.
Yes.
Because there was actually something else that I noticed that I imagine most teams aren't going to think about. So I'll mention it anyway. First of all, in the wise words of NBA Commissioner Mr. Silver, get ready to learn Turf War, buddy. Secondly, in the clip that Pastry shared, the thing that I find most interesting is that neither team actually pushed. They kind of just threw their specials and tried to time it for the end of the game, hoping that the scrum, when the snapshot's taken at 0 seconds, plays to their favor. They did not push for a wipeout, push for any picks, push for anything. They just kind of were hoping that they could nudge their opponent back far enough to get enough ink in mid to win the game, hoping that, I assume, the base is already covered and all of that, right? So that's the thing that I found most interesting, that I think most Western teams especially are not going to be thinking about. It is not a matter of actually pushing to go for a wipeout to win at the end of a Turf War game. It's only a matter of strategy. Oh,
That's the realization, though, that we came to halfway through the ladder, was that, you know, the reason that we were struggling in those Turf War games is that we kept overextending. And we needed to play just a lot more safe. Like Smork was the one that kind of called out, was like, hey, y'all, we're doing this so backwards right now. Like we're going back into, you know, how we need to rush in for ranked modes, whatever. This is Turf. We literally do not need to take a single fight in Turf. Like we just need to hang back, play it safe, play smart, and only cross mid if it genuinely makes sense to do so.
it is so great that you brought that up, Kbot, and DRF that. Like you also like your team, like among discussing it, Smork found that realization is that is a really great point, and especially because like your group doesn't run cooler. So it's like if you guys wipe, it stings. It stings really bad. I would also like to bring up another point here about the turf end here. This is Koshien instead of the non-Wadi Fest here, but I really want to talk about the end game here. Can we just pause this here just further it real quick? So there's two
magnifying glass.
Yeah. So there's two sort of dynamics when it comes to turf war openings. First of all, I just want to say both sides have a reflux. there was a 1 out of 6 pick rate for reflux in turf war. I understand triggerfish zones because you guys don't have reflux player, but it's like 1 in 6, and the other team picks reflux deco. Why? But anyway, here there's sort of these two sort of dynamics when it comes to the opener for turf war, right? You can have your reflux paint a very specific section of their base, go up, get cooler, and then fight. And we're gonna see that here. After they do that, they fight, and they come back and they paint the rest. Either that or they just full paint it. And if we just play the clip right here, we'll see that the like we start hitting play, like the reflux, they start to like they're painting, they're getting their early missile, they're painting a very specific section of their base, and then watch how they play around the cores. There's a bucket retreating for their cores so they can scrap. But in general, the fluxes they're playing around that time, right? And, like they trade out whatever happens. But as we start to go into this next 40, 50-ish seconds, the refluxes will start to paint more and more of the base, and we're gonna get a really nice screenshot of how clean both bases are. So here they are, just painting more, but just let's just.
The largest thing that I've got is my insert weapon traditional support weapon here can also do that. I guess you would prefer something like reflux, probably mostly just for the global special, but I don't think there's anything in particular special about the kit that people are going to start playing it suddenly because it's good in turf war settings. I mean, I don't doubt that it's good, right? Again, it's the global special, but I don't think that no one's going to go play. Maybe people are going to go play reflux and sweat and try hard.
It did come out.
Yeah, I mean, it came out, but I just don't think it's going to be picked every game like apparently it is in Japan.
Well, the flux can go either way, and I'm pretty sure idea if you guys picked Neo Splash, right, which is like that's very similar to that's very similar to reflux. That's understandable. But my main point is the thoroughness of the opener when it comes to we understand that in the first couple of minutes we want to get our spawn painted as efficiently and as cleanly as we can. Granted, we see right now outside's like really pushed in, but they're gonna get pushed out eventually, and then we're gonna see like Bravo have a really nice clean boot like overall in their base. But this opener of get our base clean painted so we don't have to worry about it for the rest of the game. We really didn't see enough of that during the top 8 here.
I will add that Kraken used to play reflux when we had the turf ladders be a little bit more consistent. But, since we basically got like a 2-year break from that, I think that was actually the last time Kraken's played reflux. So that's the reason we never brought it up, because we just have not practiced with it at all. So that's part of our discussion as well, is practicing more turf. I personally would like to see Kraken actually pivot to the reflux, when applicable. I mean, hell, if I need to learn it, get ready to learn reflux, buddy. Maybe that's the quote. So we'll talk about it, but I do agree. I do, Pastry, I think you're on to something with the prominence of the reflux in Japanese turf war. It is at the end of the day the best turf war weapon, and Nine mentioned it on the broadcast as well. It's just that it being preseason, I think a lot of folks are still figuring out what they want to use, what they're comfortable with. We, at least TZS, took it as very experimental as well until we realized we had an actual shot to win it. Then we kind of had to lock it and do exactly what we were comfortable with instead. But I think as time goes on, you'll see some of the strategies as folks relearn turf war, that they adjust their compositions. I wouldn't be surprised to see a top level team or two, try to bring out the pocket reflux as well. I don't think it's going to be universal, but it'll come out every now and then.
A player like Hexed is already dusting that off.
100%. I was going to touch upon how much practice will teams participating in the North American League how much practice in turf will the teams that are wanting to play in the North American League have to do? Because I'd imagine with it being a viable option now, you'll probably start to see a lot more. Will we get to see a lot more turf war counter picks, or it might just literally depend on comfort and if they're good at it?
Yeah, I think more likely you're probably going to keep seeing North American teams play more Sendo Q than they are going to go scrim right now. Or like, you know,
Makes
if 3 out of 4 players are available or something, they're going to go play Sendo Q instead of trying to find a scrim or something. So I think it's going to be harder for them to play a, you know, rotating stage, rotating full mode, including turf war series. I don't doubt that some scrims will try to work it in, especially if higher level teams have scrim partners or something of the sort. But yeah, I kind of doubt that you're going to get a lot of practice on it. Maybe like 1 a week if you've got a consistent scrim partner or something. That but it's a good idea. You're gonna have to play it, especially if you run into TZS at any point, which apparently people didn't think was going to happen, but whatever.
Well, I will say for the higher level teams, we saw it in the top 8, and I think this is going to be a consistent story throughout the entirety of the NA League. Is teams are going to pick every other mode possible, hope they can win 3-0 or 3-1, just be not picking turf war. You're going to see a turf war game 5 at some point because 2 top level teams don't want to play it. And people are gonna go crazy on Blue Sky because they're like, oh my gosh, you know, turf war game 5. Yeah, because they're avoiding it. But I think that there is room for a top level team to really make some noise, make a big play by being the ones to practice turf war and be ready to take their opponents to it.
Interestingly, time is a flat circle, as it turns out. Here we go, old man Professor Kbot giving a history lesson for all of the competitive Splatoon fans out there. In Splatoon 1, at the very beginning of the game's lifespan, the second that the August update came out, we were running tournaments for it. The prevailing rule set of Ink or Sink was exclusively inspired by Smash Brothers tournaments, where it was like you struck modes to pick which one you were going to fight on. Now, at the time, you'll also recall there were only 3 modes in the game: Splat Zones, Tower Control, Turf War. And so, in essence, it was a game of Turf War chicken because neither team wanted to waste their ban on banning Turf War. So it was kind of that like Western standoff. Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it? No one's going to do it. Guess we're playing it on game 1. Like, and that was what it was. So yeah, since you'll wonder why we don't do any of the things that were involved in Ink or Sink, because it was a disaster of a tournament because none of us knew any better. But yeah, so we're back. It sounds like we are 1 decade later. We are so back.
No, it's 2020. The year is 2066. No one in the West practices turf war. Everybody tries to avoid it in every single situation. Nintendo still forces us to play turf war. We don't want to play turf war. Get me out of this. I want to go.
You're stuck forever. You're just stuck forever, and forever, and somehow turf war is still with us.
It is hard though. Like Kbot did bring up a really good point that, like, you know, what's the most popular way to practice now? Sendo.Inc. What can you do on Sendo.Inc? Pick whatever mode you want, and
what you can do
teams
on
agree to
Sendo Q, what you can do on Sendo Q is you can go play Splat Zones only.
Exactly.
So that's what teams go do, and that's all that teams will end up practicing when they play Sendo Q. It's which is going to drive me up a wall, but as a coach, but all good.
So real.
Give
better answer for everybody. Just try. It's hard, but yeah.
What can we expect looking forward to league? We got the preseason week 1 done. What do we expect at least for the upcoming week? Probably down the road, especially what we saw from preseason week 1.
DRF, I'll let you say it.
I feel like there's an expected answer. I mean, what are we gonna see? More Jordan Kent legendary one-liners?
Yes, the Raptor.
Is that what we're trying to lead into here?
No, what we're trying to lead into is the rest of the top level teams that were busy playing in Super Jump over the weekend instead of.
When you get your run
I didn't want to say, oh, it's ready. It's the big kid's turn.
Yeah, it is the big kid's turn. No, you're 100% right. I figured that's what you were leading into, but you're right. It's gonna be the top 12 to 16 teams that just did not play in it, barring Duck Motif. Which I actually have another separate discussion line there, but we're gonna see the rest of the folks get on in here. It's gonna be very competitive at the top level. I mean, we're gonna see start to basically a whole nother tier of teams is gonna be arriving, and they're gonna be all fighting for those top 8 spots. Everyone that made the top 8 this week, congratulations, good job. Maybe we'll see each of those teams make one more appearance throughout the rest of the league if we're talking just purely objective from what the community I think is expecting. Obviously from a TZS perspective, we'd like to be there more, but we're gonna have to certainly fight for it.
To that end,
Definitely.
I will say I don't think that there are actually that many more top level teams that you could expect. There were like all of the notable absences, but I don't think that there's actually that many. Like TZS squeaking into top 8 is a lot more realistic, I think, than people would probably give it credit for. Duck Motif will almost assure it, like it'll be kind of a shock if Duck Motif, I think, doesn't make a top 8. It'll probably just be like ladder shenanigans or something, right? Will be the cause of it. But if it happens like consistently, then it'll be like, oh, really? That's interesting. But I like the teams that I'm thinking about off the top of my head. Now, granted, I don't think of very many teams nowadays at all anyway. But I can't imagine that there's that significantly more many. So yes, while the higher level teams will come out, and I expect they will get a practice run in, a dry run in, next week. We'll see how the season develops.